Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion and current Pooh-Bah Frazier, Sejan Serowick. Sejan.
Hey, Dev. So I have to be honest. I'm a little concerned and scared right now. We've been having some gremlins this morning, and it has worried me a bit.
This morning, I gotta be honest, I'm just all on the table. Have not had the best last 2 days, but this morning I woke up and was like, I'm gonna change my stars. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna feel good about myself again. So I went to this beautiful little diner in Scituate, Rhode Island. I don't know if we've ever been there. Have we ever been to Cindy's Diner together? Not an ad, just asking.
No, not Cindy's. I've been to, I've been out to Scituate, but but no, we have not been to this particular place. We have not had our date there yet.
Well, we're putting Cindy's on the list. That's just the rule. Next time you're around, we're gonna try to find a time and get to Cindy's, because I love it there. I honestly love it there. One of the things I miss the most during and post pandemic was breakfast. And I have a couple of friends who I have standing monthly breakfast dates with, and those have been really, really good. But the really nice thing about those friends is they always want to try new places. So very rarely am I returning to my haunts of old that I used to go to breakfast at. Mm-hmm. And the one time that I have gone back to a place, I won't blow them up or anything like that. They don't need to know that I was disappointed to go back. Like, it wasn't the same as it was before. So then after that happened, I was super nervous to go to Cindy's again. Because Cindy's is like quintessential diner. When Denny's switched over to the classic American diner format, they have to have cribbed pretty much everything from Cindy's. And Cindy's has the unique distinction of being the last restaurant we visited for breakfast, specifically for breakfast, right at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. So Dale and I had tickets to go to PAX East, and so that was like February of 2020. And as we were eating our breakfast, and what they do there, what I love at Cindy's, is this country eggs Benedict. So it's essentially sausage gravy and biscuits, and then into that they introduce 2 poached eggs. There's no hollandaise. So if you're a fan of hollandaise, I'm sorry, there's no hollandaise involved. But they do that. They do their country eggs Benedict, which is sausage gravy, biscuit, poached egg. Absolutely delicious. I don't know how they do it, but they have the best chocolate milk that I've ever had is at Cindy's. And as we ate...
It's all about those free-range chocolate cows, Devon.
I believe so. It is. It's not just the chocolate syrup. It's something about the milk itself that just takes the flavor so much better. It's great. It's this fantastic thing that I love. And as we finished up our meal there, it was this thought of, are we really going to go to PAX East right now? With all of this talk about it could potentially be a super spreader event and everything that was in the water. And again, this is February. This is before the world shuts down.
Right.
And after what was an amazing breakfast at Cindy's, we decided, you know what? No, we're not going to chance it. Right. And there are a lot of factors that go into that decision. Namely the fact that we do live with somebody who is immune compromised.
I mean, look, man, at this point in history, you don't have to defend this decision. History has proven you right in this regard.
Right, but I want to make sure that people understand that it was not like a light decision that was made that day. And the thing that we did, and fuck me for this, and this is totally my fault, is we stopped at the Walgreens across the street, and it reopened up my Marvel Legends addiction when I found the Stepford Cuckoos from the X-Men series. Which were Walgreens exclusives. And then that's pretty much where all my money went for the next 4 years. I'm finally starting to break that, though there is some... I haven't gone cold turkey yet. But Cindy's, because it was this, like, weirdly perfect memory that we didn't want to trounce upon, we've been, like, resisting going back. But last weekend... we were both up, Dale and I were both up at 6 a.m. on Saturday, and we're like, you know what, we're going to go to Cindy's. We're just going to do it. We have to do it early, and we'll just go and we'll see. We'll do it. And I have to tell you that Cindy's did not disappoint. Every single expectation was met, or in some cases exceeded, by that visit to Cindy's last Saturday. It went so well that last night, as we were going to bed after gaming and all sorts of bullshit, Dale's like, so we're up at 6 tomorrow to go to Cindy's? And I'm like, you know what? Been in the bad mood, right? And we'll touch on more of that bad mood stuff later on in it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do Cindy's so that I can start my Sunday off on a better foot than I've been on. And I got to tell you, everything was going great for me until I sat down in this chair to record. Which is when the gremlins decided to come. And not the fun gremlins from the movies with Joe Dante. No, like the real gremlins.
I'd say we are probably getting a little bit of the electric one there. I mean, I think he's just called Electric Gremlin, right? Because they all get weird powers in that second one.
Yeah, the Electric Gremlin is his name. He's the only gremlin that I own. He's in my desk toys.
My favorite gremlin in that movie is Vegetable Gremlin.
I like Brainy Gremlin, but just because he's
Brainy's fun,
a genius.
Yeah, but the ridiculous nature of this one drank vegetable DNA and now he's just attacking people from the salad bar is like, it is Dante at his finest in doing a sequel that he clearly was like, this is not what I wanted to be doing with this franchise, right? The New Batch is such an interesting sequel for so many reasons. It is not unique in anything that it does, but the fact that it does so much in it, I think, makes it a kind of unique experience. You know, like it tones it down to be more family friendly, which is kind of like the like big move that a lot of those horror franchises in the 80s had to decide to do. Some went hardcore in the other direction so that kids were definitely not interested, or parents were like definitely not going to get kids involved, or some decided to just lighten the fuck up and just become really silly, like Critters, Leprechaun. Like the ways in which those series decided to just get kind of goofy is really interesting. That like late 80s early 90s move. But man, Gremlins New Batch, that movie is something we should talk about sometime if we haven't already.
I know that you were not there for the commentary we did back in the Couch days, right?
Probably no, not for New Batch.
The best part of the New Batch commentary is Dale had just come from working on that Miles Teller Two-Face. Who played Two-Face? Aaron something. I can't think of his last name.
What's his name?
I don't know. You can look that up.
Aaron Eckhart.
Aaron Eckhart. Movie Bleed for This that filmed in Providence. Dale had worked at a PA at a shoot at what was the Dunkin' Donuts Center, now the Amica Mutual Pavilion, or the AMP, because fucking Rhode Island, I guess.
Hey, man, I would rather call it the AMP than the Amica Mutual Pavilion.
Oh, yeah. Right, but like the Dunk is what I liked, or just the Providence Civic Center. Like it's
the Dunk will always. I mean, let's be honest. We even knew it before it was the Dunk, right? It was so. But I mean, the Dunk will be what we always probably think about it as, because that's where we're stuck in time.
I only got arrested almost at the Dunk. I don't have any almost arrested stories for any of the other titles that it's ever had. But then I got a reward instead of arrested. That was a weird BotCon. BotCon in general is a weird thing. I opened the door.
There's also a gremlin just called George and another one just called Lenny. The only two with real names are George and Lenny, and I think that
are they gremlins, right? Or are they Mogwai? Because I think
these
those
are the gremlins.
Okay,
I believe George and Lenny are the gremlins. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that they have Mogwai forms. I think that's
Lenny. Well, yes, because I think they're from the first one. Yeah, which in the second one, that's not so much the case. You don't see too many of the Mogwai before they turn into gremlins. But in the first one, like the first third of the movie, it's just a gang of cute little Mogwai running around that are also. But Lenny's the chef one, the one that like is just really fucking goofy in the kitchen.
Yeah,
man.
Lenny, you know what? This is called the Lenny Report. I'm just calling it because I had a different name for this one. This was going to be the Barbenheimer Report, to talk about Barbie and Oppenheimer. But I guess I'm ripping the Band-Aid off early, right? I didn't see either of those movies this weekend. I had my tickets, and then, well, I'm not kidding when I say that, like, I'm going through, like, a small bout with depression right now. And I wasn't feeling going to the movies, but also I kind of felt like I got tricked by marketing, and that bummed me out too.
For which? I'm curious because you
for
didn't
the
see either
event.
of them, so.
For the event, I feel like I got tricked by the whole Barbenheimer of it all, and then like as it approached, I'm like, wait, I don't really want to see either of these.
I do want to make it extremely clear that the narrative on the Barbenheimer stuff is how uninterested in that specific concept anyone involved in either of the two movies is, right? Like, sure, I'm sure down the line some marketing guy is like jizzing his pants right now at how well it's been working, right? But but every time they've talked to someone in the movie, someone making the movie, like Nolan to even to on the other side of the fence talking to like Margot Robbie and stuff and all that, like everybody has just been like, you don't have to pick, guys. Like, it's cool. Like, it's fun that we've done this. But I mean, like, it's no different than you mentioned the beginning of COVID, and it's really reminiscent to me of the whole. Was it Doom and Animal Crossing coming out at the same time?
Yep, Doom and Eternal and Animal Crossing came out on the same day.
Yeah, and like there was a whole cross marketing there that was like, hey, we're like it's this fun goofy thing, pick your camp, but also at the same time you don't have to, and that worked really well for both of them too. I think it's just one of those things that like, yeah, marketing has definitely picked up on this trend and is definitely amplifying it, but like people are just looking for an excuse to have some fun right now. And I'm interested to hear where you feel like you really got caught up in that, because all I've been hearing from people involved and people around is like, this is a fun, goofy thing, but obviously this is just bullshit, right? And like that has pretty much turned me off to the whole I need to see them both immediately concept.
Right, but I think that's part of it, is where like I came to my senses and realized that. So here's the whole Devon Decker Barbenheimer story. If I were going to do it, I'd want to do it as the double feature. And that turned out to not be possible because by the time they scheduled a Barbie in the laser projection version, like it had immediately sold out the seats that I would have wanted. So the only way that I could do it is there was a 6:15 Oppenheimer and a 10:15 Barbie. Like that was all that was presenting for pre-sale tickets. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I got my 6:15 Oppenheimer on the Friday and then 10:15 at night Barbie tickets. And I wasn't hyper happy about seeing Barbie at like 10 p.m. because then like I'm not going to be home till almost 1. And not that I have any issues staying up that late, but it's just like the inconvenience of it to the other people because my father is still sleeping downstairs. So I would probably wake him up. And it's just one of those situations where I'm like logistically, this is not the best thing, but there's no other option here. So it's what I have to do. And then one of the other things that made me so excited about it was, I don't know if you've seen the shirts that look like it's a Barbie promotional shirt and an Oppenheimer promotional shirt were cut down the middle and then stitched back together to make a Franken shirt for the weekend.
No, I have not seen it go that far out here.
So I've seen those shirts, and I finally found one that was in a size that would fit me, so I ordered it. And I'm like, this really sells it. I have my tickets. I'm going to have this like shirt to show I survived the whole event. And then on Thursday, I get the email from the company saying, we were wrong. We can't make it in 5X. So if you'd like another size, let us know, or we can process your refund. So like that kind of was like the first crack into glass of everything. The second was on Thursday, Dale decided finally, I'd like to come along with you. And then when I went to go get the extra tickets for Dale, looking at the theaters and seeing how full they were, first of all, no tickets available for Dale to join me. So I would be a solo explorer, even though I had somebody who wanted to go with me. So that like kind of stunk. Not that I don't mind going to the movies alone, but if I'm going to the movie by myself, I don't really want it to be in a sold out theater, which is what both of them had become.
Right. And
also like, I'm still not super jazzed up to go to movies and be around strangers. Like we've talked about that. Like it would need to be, it depends. There are certain movies, and one I think that we're going to talk about later on and everything, that I would probably do it, like Marvel stuff. But for Marvel stuff, I'm making sure that I'm there like the first day, usually at a showtime where it's going to be difficult for other people to attend. 10 o'clock at night, that's not the case. And then...
Not on a Friday,
yeah,
for sure.
So then Barbie eventually puts up 2:30 in the afternoon tickets. So I'm like, oh, I don't have to go at 10. Try to go and get it, already sold out by the time I go to look at it. And I mean, by sold out, I mean I could sit in the very front row. But I don't want to see a movie like that. Who likes to see a movie like that? Especially you're buying your tickets in advance, so you know, like, I'm not going to choose that.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, that's the secret, Dev. That's been the thing all along that I think a lot of people have figured out, especially during COVID when we couldn't go to the movies anymore. There was very much this feeling pre-COVID of this, like, need to do these things, right? Like, call it FOMO, call it whatever you want, but there was this desire to be at these things that we have slowly started to chip away at, and, I mean, helped immensely by the fact that we couldn't do it, right? I mean, it's kind of like going cold turkey on an addiction. This idea that, like, people now are just like, I don't really need to do this. And that's what you're talking about. Is like, it's not that these things are, it's not impossible to make sure this happens, but the effort you'd have to go through to make it happen doesn't feel worth it anymore. Right. And I think that's a big thing that, like, movie studios and theaters have just really had a hard time with accepting. Is that people are just no longer in a position to feel this need to be in the movie theater. I think the big thing about the Barbenheimer thing that I think should not be ignored, as goofy as I think it is, and as much as everybody involved with it seems to actually be kind of dismissive of it, like, the important thing about this sense of marketing is it's the first time, I think, since maybe there was some stuff with feelings of this with Spider-Man as well, not Spider-Verse, but
No Way Home.
Like, this idea that, man, I need to be involved in this particular event, right? It's not just I need to see this movie someday. It is I need to see this movie in this particular way, and that means that I have to go and see it now, right? Which is just not a thing that we see nearly as often, you know? And I think people expected us to see it a little bit more with movies like Indiana Jones and, like, some of the stuff going on with DC. DC just can't seem to hit that ball at all. Like, they can't figure out how to get people to feel that way about any of their projects yet. And I'm slowly starting to think that the revamp with Gunn isn't going to do it. You know, I was thinking, man, that's going to be the time. Like, we can't really judge anything that's going on with DC right now, up to and including what's about to happen with Blue Beetle, because, like, it's all past decisions that are just kind of rippling still, right? And I just kept thinking, once Gunn finally gets his, like, Superman movie out there and we start seeing that stuff, but even people now, like, I've been hearing a lot of people saying that they're just not interested even in that. Like, they just want DC to just, like, cool it for a while. And the same with Marvel. Like, the big thing with superhero movies right now is there's just this feeling that people just kind of, they're not saying they never want to see another one. They're just saying that they don't really know if they've got it in them to see another one right now. And, like, on the best days, right? There are definitely people on the other end that are saying they never want to see another one again, which is, you know, that's, live your life. I'm not here to judge that. But the people that will pay the money, even the people willing to go pay the money to go see another superhero movie, even they don't necessarily want to do it at this moment. And you don't have to, right? So this thing that you're talking about, these feelings that you're talking about, like you're just, it sounds like you're just really coming to terms with the fact that, like, you actually have a lot more power in this decision than you thought you did.
Well, and then another, like, thing that leads into that power is that The Flash is already available to buy at home. Transformers Rise of the Beast is already available to buy at home. And one, like, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, which is, like, I feel is less than the 30 days, is available to buy at home. That's what I did yesterday. Well, I bought that and watched it.
Yeah, that one had a really weird history. I mean, we haven't even talked about it on the show before, right? Maybe we've offhandedly mentioned that it was, like, out, but that one had one of those really weird histories in that, like, it was kind of a stealth, like, release and movie, right? And DreamWorks, thank you. DreamWorks does this a lot more than any other animation house, I feel like, is they very much have that kind of, hey, we're making a new Puss in Boots, keep an eye out, or hey, we're, you know, there's hints at the end of Puss in Boots, if you haven't seen it yet, that there might be another Shrek movie on the way, right? And like so that idea of, like, they'll definitely do the whole, like, hey, there's something down the road, keep an eye out thing. But then they'll also, sometimes they'll just be like, also, here's a movie about a fast snail, and you're just like, where the fuck did this come from? Like, they are really hesitant, I think, on their marketing for a lot of these animated movies because of the price, right? And so the other thing that happened with Ruby Gillman is it feels like it came out and then, like, kind of went into a lull, but then I think people actually started going to see it all of a sudden, and I don't know if that coincided with like school vacations or something, but it had like this weirdly long tail on it that didn't feel like a tail because nobody was talking about it at first. So like there was this weird kind of, so I'm interested to know what the last day it was in theaters versus it's now being on streaming, because I think you're right. I do think it was a really short period, but I do also feel like there was like a really long time it was in theaters that we just weren't aware of, like as a society.
So it came out June 30th. It came out the same day as Indiana Jones.
Okay.
So the fact that it was available to purchase this week, this past Tuesday, means that that's like 3 weeks before it came out. Math, I'm trying to do that right. Let me look at the
something like that.
Quick.
So like 21 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, like it had its like red carpet premiere like mid-June. So like that's the other thing is like it was also out for like 2 weeks before it
went wide.
Before it went wide, which is just wild to think about for a movie that, as far as I know, I don't like it. I don't know much about it, I guess is the way I'll put that. Like I don't know why you would have this. Yeah, I don't know the history of that movie one iota, other than like I kind of saw that it was out, which must have been the red carpet premiere stuff with it, and then like all of a sudden it was actually out, and then all of a sudden it's on streaming, and it's like has a year passed with this movie and I've just forgotten it? Like what is going on?
I was surprised to see it on streaming, especially now knowing that it was the same day as Indiana Jones, because I just finally, thank you, Joe. Big shout out to my buddy Joe Copel. He does a bunch of podcasts like the SNES podcast or the Radical Retro Roundup. I'll give shout outs because he was the first person I could talk to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny about with. And that is because Barbie was sold out. He went to go see Barbie and there were no tickets left. So he, like, as a consolation, saw Indiana Jones 5. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not sad for you, because I've been waiting for another human being to see the movie. And it was fun to talk about it, just to say. And it, like, that's not recorded anywhere. It was just a talk between two old coworkers and friends. And, like, oof, it was nice to, like, have someone feel the same way I felt, too. Because not that I'm mad at Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I just have questions. And I needed to know if it was just me who had those questions. And as soon as it comes to Disney Plus, probably for Disney Plus Day, if I had to guess when they're going to do it, and Sejan gets a chance to watch it, 6 months after that, I'm excited to discuss it on the show. But yeah, Ruby Gillman, like, that's the thing, is this movie hasn't even been out like a month, and it's on streaming. And it's one of those situations where I'm like, I can get this movie for $25, and I will have it in my digital library until X, Y, and Z happens with licensing. But that is such a better deal than going to the movies for $20 for the ticket.
Right.
Like, I get to watch it at home. I get to watch it, like, with multiple people. So, like, that ticket cost gets caught. Like, it was nice. And one of the things, Haunted Mansion is a strange film. I don't know if it was smart of them to move it to July, because they ended up playing the switcheroo with the Marvels, and I'm not sure why they did that. And I think I just said the magic word, so have a cigar. But it's one of those situations where the Haunted Mansion, I'm looking at buying pre-sale tickets for it. The only theater that it's playing in is a 8-row theater. That is very small. Like, I don't want to pay the same price to see something in laser projection to see that movie when it's pretty much the same experience I'm going to get at home.
Yeah.
I
think you're right there. I mean, the big thing with the Haunted Mansion switch with the Marvels is twofold. First of all, you're the first person to bring up Haunted Mansion, like, in conversation with me. I have brought it up with many people, and every time it's always sorry, what now? What's coming? You mean the Eddie Murphy? No. Like there has been so many conversations I have had about that movie that I have started, but nobody else seems to even begin to like talk about that movie or think about that movie or even know about that movie. So thank you, because you're the first person to do it independently of me. So there's that, right? And so I do think moving it into kind of a midsummer, like kind of like, let's just put it in the out in the water with the rest of its ilk and just, you know, see if it can survive. Like, I think that's what they're doing there. I think they didn't want it to be some tentpole film later in the year because they realized that it might not be able to carry that versus a Marvel movie, which might be able to. Now, the other side of that coin, everything going on with superhero movies in general, comic book movies in general right now, and for Disney Marvel, the one you have to be looking at is Ant-Man, right? Like, you are also paying attention to what's going on with DC, but even looking back at Ant-Man, I think that it's the first sign of them possibly taking to heart this idea that people are being overloaded right now, right? So they got it out of the way of Secret Invasion, right? And then they were also able to give it a little bit more breathing room from the last movie. I think my hope is what I should say is that it's kind of the first step in Disney Marvel really taking to heart that idea that they need to slow the fuck down, right? You know, they've already announced that a few things have been pushed back, and then because of the strike, a couple of other things have been pushed back. Specifically, Deadpool is the big one, which is interesting because this is going to be like the bring Deadpool into the MCU movie, and so like now that's the one that's like kind of out there, like costing them $600,000 a day. I'm curious to see how things go in that regard. I don't know, you know, maybe Disney has learned nothing and they were just, you know, playing three-card Monty with us, trying to trick us into going to something. But I don't think that's going to work. My hope is that this is kind of part of a larger plan of theirs.
Well, the reaction from the Marvels really feels driven by the backlash that the original trailer had. Like, that seems like one of the things that incentivized them to move it. In addition to Ant-Man. Like, those two things happened at the same. It was just hated on YouTube. Bunch of thumbs down, bunch of negative comments. The same type of stuff we saw with Ghostbusters Answer the Call. Not to the same level, but there was a lot of negative criticism levied at the Marvel's teaser when it was first released. And then I remember seeing it before Guardians of the Galaxy, or maybe even Ant-Man. It was one of those two. I think it was Ant-Man, because then we had to drive up to New Haven after seeing Ant-Man for an appointment for my dad. And in the drive up, I'm like, if that's the teaser that people saw and thought, man, I want to like just be mean to this movie, I don't know how to feel. Because that teaser was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the only trailer that I know of that I saw, and I believe I saw before Ant-Man as well, was the one where they do the whole body switching, like you're just watching a bunch of moments of that sort of stuff, and then like obviously moments where they're all in the. When I say them all, I mean Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, and what's her name? Proton? No, it is Proton.
Photon.
With the three of them all working together. I don't know. I don't think there's any other trailer other than that out, and it's just wild because I know some people that have seen it and been like not interested because again that's kind of a big problem right now for these kinds of movies. Mm-hmm. But I don't know anybody that saw it and like outwardly despised it. I mean, first of all, it's a fucking trailer, which I know is like in 2023 doesn't mean fuck all, right? As you pointed out rightly, a movie from like 8 years ago was dealing with this kind of shit, right? But this idea that you would just automatically turn your brain to just like hatred over just like 30 seconds of a thing that you haven't even taken the entirety in of, that you don't have to take in the entirety of if you don't want to, is just never going to make sense to me. So
yeah. So I know that was definitely something on that. With the 1-2 punch of how Ant-Man was received, that was when the conversation started. And then potential spoilers for Secret Invasion here. They have gone on record during, I mean, Comic-Con is going on. San Diego Comic-Con is going on right now, and that's fucking weird. But one of the things that came out of San Diego Comic-Con is the fact that The Marvels is a direct follow-up sequel to the events of Secret Invasion. They went on record for that, and that was fun. That was a fun thing to read because it came on the heels of stopping at McDonald's to pick up dinner for the family and one of them got a Happy Meal. My mother likes the Happy Meals. And the toy inside was Nick Fury, branded as the Marvels. So it's one of those situations where, oh yeah, McDonald's already had their licensing deal in place, and it doesn't shift. Like when they took the Mario movie from being a Christmas film to April of this year, and in January, all the Mario toys were in the Happy Meals. Right now, all the Marvel toys are in the Happy Meals for a movie that won't be out for 4 months. Because, you know, that's got to make somebody happy. I'm very happy about it because it has not been difficult to get all of the Marvel toys that are currently available. In addition to the fact that there are chase variants of like 4 of the toys. And that's, thank you, McDonald's, for just making it even harder to get a full set of your toys. But we only found that out because the first day that we went, we got like 7 Carol Danvers Miss Marvel figures in her binary form where like her hands are glowing and stuff. And I thought, oh, that's cool. Like, that's a cool figure. And then Friday, we went to check if they had the new toys, and we got a Carol without any of that stuff. And then we looked and saw, oh yeah, the glowing hand one is a variant. So also the chase figure, I have 7 of. So I don't know.
Expect somebody to come in and just get 7 Happy Meals in a row. So
well, I mean, you can just buy the toys. It's $1.50 for a toy, and that's nice because, you know, 7 cheeseburgers from McDonald's is not healthy. You heard it here first at the Say Report.
Just, you know, just in case you guys needed that information.
But yeah, but it was a Nick Fury toy that was in the Happy Meal, and I go, oh, I guess I know that he's going to survive the secret invasion. Thanks, McDonald's toy spoiler.
Or at least some form of him. Again, yeah. Not to get too spoilery about things, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? At this point, but that was kind of a fun moment of, well, there goes that mystery. But yeah, so it's one of those situations of I'm not upset about it. But then you also have to consider if they took and literally just picked up and switched the two, which is what everybody is saying happened, is that the Marvels was originally the 28th of July. That means that Haunted Mansion was coming out 2 weeks after Halloween. And that seems like the wrong place to put the spooky movie. Like now, happening in July, they can have it available for October.
Yeah, they can put it up on Disney Plus, have it on store shelves, and like have all of that going with it. So I don't know if it was a complete 1-to-1. The other thing is maybe it would have been a couple of weeks earlier in that period, you know, because they don't really think in like exact dates. They just think in like, you know,
all of I looked into it when I heard this, and everything that I have found supports the fact that the release date for Haunted Mansion was not until after Halloween 2023. Yeah, which is just crazy to me.
The very conversation about the idea of them being able to just pick up and switch shit around at whim, that means nothing. They could have decided a month before, 2 weeks before, that they were going to move it up.
Yeah.
Nothing is set in stone anymore. Is kind of like, and you know, we kind of, again, this was the case before COVID. It's just we are all just much more aware and much more done with kind of this silly bullshit. Because that's the other thing is like people are also sick of being promised a thing and then not seeing it, which is what's happening across the board. I think that's another thing that we haven't really talked about so much in all of this fatigue that people are feeling with movies in general. Is part of that is that people are being sick of being told that a movie's coming out this date, showing up to the theater and it not being there, which is a little bit of an exaggeration. People know in advance before that, but like that is like basically the feeling, right? Is like you've been told that this thing is going to be available for you to watch. You go to find it and it's not. It does kind of kill your drive for wanting to go and see that thing. It's like if that's, you know, kind of like what's going on with you in the Barbie Oppenheimer thing right now is like you kind of made this decision that you're like, I don't really know if I really want to go see it tonight. And now I don't know the next time you're going to be in a position to be able to go and see both of those movies in that fashion, right?
I mean, they're still like, they're playing through next 2 Fridays. The next time that they're switching over what's available in laser projection is the 4th of August. So they're staying that way for a whole other week based on their sales. And they can't change that stuff like last minute because they're already selling tickets for it. So if you buy a ticket for something in that, I mean, it can always be like we preempted it and changed it, but,
Sure, but
the
are you
way
gonna have
that
another
people
7
feel
hours
about
again
it,
to go to the theaters? Like, I mean,
yeah,
I
probably
just
not.
don't know.
I just,
Right. That's what I mean. Is like this one opportunity that you had to go and do this thing and you didn't do it. So now it's going to be a
well, I
question
wouldn't
of
have
which
even
one
been
do
able
you
to
see
do it. I still had to
when.
break it up into 2 days.
Yeah.
Like if it were the one day, I think that the drive to do it, like not being able to see it the way I wanted to see it. Like, first of all, I would want to see Barbie into Oppenheimer, not the other way around. Because then that's a tall order for Barbie. Like, bring me back from the brink of this Christopher Nolan film about the atomic bomb birth.
Yeah.
Like, seeing Barbie and being in a good mood, like, that's like, oh, I'm overfilled with joy. So that by the end of Oppenheimer, I'm at like 50%, maybe 40%. I don't know. I don't know. It was like, yeah, you're right. At this point, I don't think I'm going to seek out seeing either of them in theaters. Like, the big other thing was, I was excited to see Tenet. You know what film I haven't seen yet? Is Tenet. And I've had 3 years to see that. So whatever control Christopher Nolan had over me has dissipated.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not anti-Nolan by any stretch of the
No,
imagination.
and that's not what I'm saying either. It's just,
Yeah.
it's one of those situations where, like, Interstellar, oh, I had to see Interstellar in the 35 millimeter. Like, I sought it out and I did all of that. And Tenet, I was prepared to do the same thing before the world shut down. And now, even though Tenet is a film that I was excited to see, it had, like, it reminded me of things like Memento and other early Nolan stuff. And then, like, I just never saw it because I couldn't see it in theaters. And that's the same thing. Like, Oppenheimer, my drive to see Oppenheimer was because it was part of the Barbenheimer experience.
Right.
And, it's even the fact that it was Christopher Nolan, I'm like, oh, that's cool that he's making a movie, but whatever. Like, I don't know. It's strange. It's a strange way that I'm feeling. And it is very demonstrative of, like, I got caught up in the marketing hoopla of it. And I know that the people didn't care. But, like, the way that people responded to that was, well, then I'll just go see both. And that clearly has not happened. Because Oppenheimer has made about half of the money that Barbie has made. But then I also think about the fact that, well, that's what happened with Super Mario Brothers. These are long-running brands finally getting movies in 2023, and people are like, why are people growing out in droves to see them? Barbie has existed for almost 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, I will also point out that the other big similarity between both of these movies is not only are they brands that people are all familiar with and have all these heartwarming feelings towards, the movies themselves have, by all accounts, I have not seen Barbie yet, but I've definitely seen Mario more than once, joyful experiences, right? I mean, which is kind of exactly the opposite of what you get with something like Oppenheimer. So I think that's the other big thing that people are kind of like missing here in this whole puzzle is like the other thing that is making people want to go out to the movies right now is kind of these more joyful films, right? We're not seeing these larger depressing, not necessarily depressing, but like it's not a guarantee that Dial of Destiny with Indiana Jones was going to be a very joyful movie. We want it to be, but first of all, we've all saw Crystal Skull, and secondly, we're all under the impression that this is his last movie, which could mean a number of things. Does he die? Does he retire? Whatever it means, it's going. There's going to be a bittersweet, melancholy twist to this Indiana Jones film. Is basically the way that it was promised to us. Do you know what I wasn't in the mood to go and do? I wasn't in the mood to go and see and watch this melancholy, depressing thing about my hero that I very much like, right? Like there's this stink, right, of this like over dramatization on a lot of this stuff that people just don't want to go and see. I know one of the big reasons I wasn't interested in Shazam 2 was because we've talked very much about how that first one is actually kind of extremely dark and very sad at moments and depressing. And like, which is not the point of Shazam, and one of my big issues with that first one is that Billy and like the story of Shazam, like those should have been more joyful movies. Now, since that film has come out, I've heard a lot of people talk about how it is a much more uplifting, or at least more fun experience than the first movie in a lot of ways. But considering everything else around it at this point, I've got other reasons that I'm just probably not going to see it, if not for a while. But like one of the first thoughts I had with that movie was Shazam was just so down, like such a downer of a superhero movie, of a comic book movie. So like I just didn't have any interest in it because of that, right? And Oppenheimer, it's one of the reasons why I definitely have plans to go and see Barbie this weekend. I'm on a holiday weekend out here in Utah. We actually have a 3-day weekend. So like on Monday, when there's a whole bunch of people that do kind of have to work because it's not a federal holiday, but it is a state one. So there's, people on both sides of the fence. I'm like, I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm going to the movie theaters on Monday. But that's what I mean is I have definite plans to go and see Barbie this weekend, whereas like Oppenheimer, I have been talking to people because I want to go see it, but we haven't set anything in stone yet. And I think a large part of that is because I don't know if any of us really want to pull the trigger on a 4-hour film that is going to make us self-reflect in depressing ways. Like, nah, it's not the experience everybody's looking for right now.
I mean, I don't want to give too much credit to like other things about it, but the guy on the morning radio who I've started calling Chest Kick, because I think if I ever met him in real life, I might kick him into chest a la a Spartan in 300. Like, I do not jive with his, I'm a cynical asshole about everything, like, way of being on the morning show. And if you live local, you probably know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to say his name. But he was talking about how Oppenheimer is almost like a horror film. And I'm like, you know what? Based on everything I'd felt, I wasn't getting that feeling about this movie. Like, it's a difficult structure. It's a difficult topic that you're covering if you're talking about the man who did it. But, like, to outright say it's been compared to a horror film, like, I'm not in the mood for that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, and then after the day that I had at work, I'm just like, no, I don't think I'm doing that.
Yeah, I think we're going to find more and more, that it's why people didn't want to go to something like Shazam 2, but then we're very willing to go to Spider-Verse, because the first Spider-Verse movie is such a, like, uplifting, joyful experience, and people, I think, were looking for more of that, right? I think we're going to see that people are going to be a lot less picky about what they go to, and then the other side of that means that the stuff they're going to go to is going to be some stuff that isn't going to be as heavy or as hard for a while. And, for good or for ill, I just think that it's just not what people want to spend their money or their time on right now.
I don't blame you on that. I mean, I don't know how huge a spoiler this is going to be, if you don't want me to say it, but I'm glad that I knew nothing going into Dial of Destiny, because then I found something that James Mangold had said about his drive with the film, and I'm just like, man, if I had read that, I don't know if I would have been, like, up for seeing the movie. and basically what that was we wanted to start him out as the most broken, depressed version of the character he could be.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh man, like, yeah, if you were trying to sell me on a movie and that's your marketing, I don't think I'd do it. And also, to support further everything that you're saying, look at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Which is coming to Disney Plus on August 2nd. So we will do a full out, oh my god, episode on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It'll probably come out on Victory Day, which August 14th. Just looking ahead at how everything's working.
Man, you just like really making some promises now.
Well, I mean, that'll be 2 weeks from when it's out and available to people, right? 2-ish weeks.
Yeah,
yeah, and you've been wanting to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, have you not? I'm trying to.
Yeah,
I'm making the promise for you. I
did
it for you, Sage. But going like forward on that film was a film that people were excited to see because it finally wrapped up the whole trilogy and everything that way. But then the subject matter being what it was as presented in the trailers. So many people were like, I'm not seeing the movie. I'm not giving it my time.
Yeah.
If that's what it's going to be about. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, this is like a larger like meta thing that like I'm sure there wasn't. It's not quite tinfoil hat. This is me just pointing out an obvious coincidence, but it is a hell of a coincidence, right? Is one of the big things that's really kicking Marvel Disney in the butt right now is they made what at the time was a I mean, a fantastic artistic choice on by as far as I'm concerned, that this phase after Endgame was going to be one about dealing with like concepts of grief, right? We've talked about this before with the ways that all of the movies that have come out since Endgame have really kind of had this focus on grief and the various ways people deal with it. Some in more joyous ways than others, and all that sort of stuff, right? The fact that that is also landing right at the same time as we are all kind of getting back out into the world after a terrible world like altering event that is COVID, like it is such an unfortunate coincidence that basically it's a thing we all are probably currently dealing with, are these feelings of loss and grief, and what did the last 3 years mean to us when we had to make these choices that for some people, for all people, completely changed our lives going forward. Like, we're already in this place dealing with these feelings and this transition, so when we want to go someplace to escape that, like a movie theater, those are just not the kind of stories we want to go and see.
Yeah. I mean, at the start of Secret Invasion, my mother's like, you need to pause it. And she's like, we went through our own snap blip situation. And I just need to take a minute to acknowledge that so that I can have it said and then move past it while watching this series that seems to be, we're going to deal with that in some way, shape, or form. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. You're not wrong. It is something that we think of all the time. It is one of those situations where anyone asks, what year is it in a Marvel program? And I'm like, I don't know, because they did the 5-year time skip. So they should be like 3 years ahead of us.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they've kept with that. Or if like there are moments where someone have said things about the year and the timeline. And it's like, so, like, did we just pick up the timeline from where it was before? Like, is that just what you decided in this world? It's strange. It is a strange thing, and you're not wrong about that. And you know what? To go back to Shazam, right? Which, again, we've talked about a bunch. Those are movies that's a character that's supposed to kind of be happy, right? With the enthusiasm of a child who becomes a superhero. One would not have expected that the fun movie would have been Black Adam. But Black Adam was a blast. Black Adam had the enthusiasm I was expecting from a Shazam film.
Yeah, I think it catches a lot of shit because, much like The Rock, there's a lot of style going in, and it's not for a lot of people that means they don't see a lot of substance. I'm not saying that I'm one of them, but that's definitely a criticism levied both against that movie and about like The Rock and his like acting in general. Right? Is like he is one of those people that gets cast in a movie and you want to go and see Dwayne Johnson. You don't go to that movie to watch him fall into a character, right? As opposed to other people that are kind of in his position. I mean, we've talked about before the ways in which Dave Bautista has very much straight up compared himself to The Rock, claiming that that's exactly what he doesn't want from his acting career. He does not want to become that type of actor. So like this is a thing that's out there, right? And I think that at the time when we didn't have the next 2 or 3 DC projects in our view that we could compare it to, a lot of people then took that as like criticism against the movie as if that were a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
The problem is now that we've seen something like Shazam 2 come out, I wish that we could just go and see a DC movie that we were going to see just because the guy in it was fun to watch, right? I mean, like, what's wrong with that? like these movies are, I don't know. It's like this idea that like why is that a bad element? Like I don't think it's good or bad. Like if you have a charismatic actor in this role that is clearly dedicated to this film, like people getting over the top about how much he was like, yeah, this is going to be the movie that saves DC and blah blah blah. And it's like, why wouldn't he want to feel that way? If I were making this movie, and that was the energy that my main actor was bringing to that, hell the fuck yes. You want him to be proud of that movie. You want him to be over the top and blow that shit up. And like people being weird about the ways in which he handled that, I just don't understand. And like people who are weird about the fact that like the movie was like goofier than they expected and like didn't have Shazam in it and all this other stuff that they didn't expect, and I'm just like, these are all things that made that movie interesting and fun. Like I'm not saying that it's a quote unquote good movie or bad movie. I feel like that's a separate conversation, but people are taking all of this stuff about the ways in which they felt about that movie and the ways that it was made and what that meant afterwards, and like there's a lot of stuff that in retrospect I think were actually really good things. Like at the time, it was hard for me to really kind of defend those things because, yeah, compared to some other things that were out around the time, compared to what other superhero movies had done, it was definitely not playing the same game that other movies were playing. But now, again, looking back with hindsight, I'm just like, that's actually okay with me, right? Like, I'm okay with the fact that that movie decided to make the decisions that it made. You know, everything that we've learned about Shazam, everything we've learned about Zach Levy, like, so Dwayne Johnson saying, I don't want him in my movie, give me Henry Cavill. Actually, yeah. Like, I thumbs up to that decision.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the craziest thing about it. We talk about how fun Black Adam actually was and how fun it was to go see The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, in that movie. He's not fun in that film. He's kind of the blackest part of Black Adam.
He definitely has some goofy ass, like, Dwayne Johnson style lines, though, right?
Yeah,
like,
well, he has those lines, but they're more heel Dwayne Johnson stuff than like hero. He is the guy.
Now you're talking nuance, and I'm all on board for it. But this is exactly what other people don't want to think about this movie, right? Is they don't want to get into the nuance of that film because they don't want to see it, which is fine. Which I think is a different conversation than the one that I was having before.
Yeah.
Like it's not. I think people are wrong for immediately jumping to this conclusion that just because Dwayne Johnson tells a joke that he's just being the same old Dwayne Johnson. It's like, no, actually the ways in which he approaches humor in this movie are different than any other character I've ever seen him play before. Maybe the closest, this is going to be the wildest pull ever, is maybe Doom. Like when he's Doom Guy. Well, he's not Doom Guy, right?
Well, he's not Doom Guy.
He's one of the other soldiers in that movie. But the Marine in Doom is maybe the only thing that gets close to this because of like the whole nihilistic nature of that whole film. But like that, like other than that, the rest of his career has been much sillier, much more joyous, much more. I mean, even in the Fast and the Furious movies, it's much more upbeat, like said with a smile. And like, yeah, you're right. Like what he does in Black Adam is not that. But I also think that there's a lot of people that don't. That's not enough for them. Let me put it that way.
Right. I'd say he's more Scorpion King than Jumanji in that. Like Doom is the perfect comparison, and you win the gold star for bringing that in. I forget Doom exists as a movie. That is one of those. It's that like.
Well, and so consider that then, right?
Yeah.
Why would he go back to characters like this? Give him all the shit in the world you want, but every time he goes into one of these characters, people refuse to even acknowledge it or remember it, right?
Yeah.
So of course he's gonna just go back to just making more silly movies with like Fast and the Furious and Hobbs and Shaw and shit.
Yeah. But you look at him as something like the Scorpion King, he is that like serious sort of comedy. And then to go to Black Adam, and I can't believe we're having a Black Adam conversation almost a year after we saw it, but like a lot of the humor in that comes from his interactions with the kid. The kid is the goofy part of that. Or his interaction with other superheroes trying to like lighten the mood a la Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean him and Hawkman in that movie, like their whole back and forth is supposed to be somewhat humorous, right? Like I think that movie, this is where we start to talk about like the criticisms of that film. I don't think that movie always nails the humor because it's trying to be dark, and dark humor is takes a deft hand. But that being said, even it trying and even being there and even enjoying it, I still had a good time with that film, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't know if I would come out of Shazam 2 feeling that way.
Honestly, the big issue that I have with Shazam, right? This is what it is. All of these failures at the box office has me, and it seems like, entertainment audiences at large, reassessing how we felt about earlier films. And the biggest issue for me with those films is that Billy Batson and Shazam, Captain Marvel, do not feel like they are the same person.
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
We've talked about that before.
Levy makes no effort to act like the kid that is, and I say it that way because narratively we're introduced to the kid before we're ever introduced to the Shazam version of him, right? So
right.
So it feels like it's a failing on his part. You could say blame goes both ways in those regards, but like, I mean, I don't know. I'm like my favorite example of this is like this exact move happens in 17 again, and that movie is in all intents and purposes, that movie is saved by the fact that Zac Efron locks in on a Matthew Perry-esque style of character work that is just choice. And it's what makes parts of that movie work so well when it's not good writing and it's dumb tropey shit and all this stuff. But Zac Efron on screen doing his best Matthew Perry makes that movie amazing, right? And like the fact that they could not pull that off in Shazam is so disappointing, right? Because I feel like it's such a key part to that character to not be able to pull it off is just it's a big letdown.
I mean, not only that, he is a Shazam that lives in the Snyderverse. Like put that part on the table, right? Yeah, Henry Cavill is the Superman of that universe. So this is the Superman who like has killed, right? That is the world that Shazam lives in. It would be really interesting if the hyper moody, kind of like feeling dark about his situation, Billy Batson, that's how him as Shazam first approaches the world. Yeah. But then as he learns to have fun with it, with Freddy and with everything else, you get to see both versions, both the child and the hero, lighten up and have more fun with it.
Yeah, I think part of it is because by going with the snarky nature of Billy in those movies, right? I think that's one of the biggest character things for me, and this is true of young Billy and Shazam Billy, right? Like, I think that there's a move in those movies, and this is probably the Snyderverse of it all. And keeping in mind, I haven't seen the second one, but I mean,
yeah, neither have I. So I mean, this is all.
But this idea that Billy is a much snappier, snarkier teen, right, is kind of is present in those movies, right? And but that's cute when you're a kid, right? I think that's one of the big problems for me, especially, you know, like when you're a young kid kind of going through some shit and you're acting like that, that's fine. And then he's suddenly an adult in an adult body and behaving the same way. The movie doesn't do enough, and now I'm talking about just the first movie in general, never did enough for me to justify watching Zachary Levi's body behave in that way. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't find it cute and endearing when an adult is being snarky and shitty, right? Like, it just feels gross. It feels immature. And, like, I get the idea is that he's supposed to be a kid in this person's body, but then it's the movie's job to remind me of that, to show me that, to keep that thread going. And it doesn't do that. It just lets basically, it feels like they made Billy Batson, the boy, a little shittier so that Zachary Levi could do his shitty Chuck comedy when he is on screen. Like, it felt like they changed the character of Billy as a whole in order to suit this style of humor, and that sucks. That's not why I'm there.
Well, and also the enthusiasm is the thing that I don't get. It literally feels like, and there's an extra E in that Shazam that you just said that is all about extra enthusiasm in life. Because Billy is not happy in his life. But then I'm a superhero and I'm super enthusiastic about everything. And like, that is so diametric, and it should be earned. And it's not. It's just immediately, oh my God, I can fly. Yeah. Like, and that might be how you'd exist, but like, that doesn't seem like a way that Billy would ever react based on
Billy in that movie.
Yeah, based on all the time that we spend with him pre-Shazam.
Right.
I don't know. I can't believe we're doing this. I gotta be. You know what? I don't really have much else to talk about. Is the Lenny Report, because of all the Lenny to Gremlin, but also this is a cute little anecdote. We went back to, in addition to going to Cindy's, we went back to Harry's Burger Bar on Federal Hill. Have you ever been to that one at least?
Yes.
Okay, good. I know that I'm making sure that you do some of these good things. And the first week we went there, we like introduced ourselves to the bartender because he's like, I'm going to be here every Tuesday. And take a guess at what the bartender's name was. I'm telling you right now that it was not Lenny. But I want you to think...
Was it Harry?
No, that'd be another whole other thing. But it is a name that, like, if this is a person's name, you are going to remember it. Take a shot in the dark, and then I will tell you.
Carl.
Carl, that's a good, solid name. His name is Elvis. Ah. The kid's name is Elvis.
Nice.
That's a name that you're going to remember. So we went back there again this week, right? Because we had another opportunity where all the Deckers were together, because we're like car sharing and stuff right now with various appointments and where jobs are going. So we go in, and Mother sees the kid, and she goes, Lenny! And that's not his name. His name is not Lenny. But everybody rolled with it like that's his name until the end of the end of dinner, where he's like, all right, it was good seeing you again. I guess the name's Elvis. And my mother's like, oh my God, I called you Lenny. I announced Lenny like you were Norman Cheers. It's been a week of Lenny's for me, Siege.
I thought you meant she was just dicking with him, but she actually thought
she legitimately thought his name was Lenny because she met two other Lennys. The guy who finally was able to fix our key fobs for our cars, his name was Lenny. And then there was another Lenny at just some other restaurant that we went to. Nice. So she thought, she did not realize that she had slipped up. You'd think that she was fucking with him until at the end he's like, I just gotta tell you, it's Elvis, it's not Lenny. I was gonna roll with it.
Did anybody else correct her, or did you guys not realize it happened?
Oh, I saw it happen, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna let this slow burn. And I talked to him about it, and I'm like, your name's not Lenny, right? It's Elvis?
You're a good son. You're a good son.
Sometimes you gotta prioritize the joke, Siege. Especially, like, who's hurt in that situation? Nobody's hurt.
I mean, look, man, maybe it's because of my personal anxiety compared to the rest of the world, but it would hurt me. I would be physically hurt.
All right, Siege, if we are ever in a scenario where you loudly announce the wrong name of an individual, I will immediately correct you.
So that wouldn't probably happen, right? For the very same reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I would never just walk into a room, and I walk into rooms in my house, and I just, like, and you're Tessa, right? Okay, yes, right, okay.
Like, people I live with, I confirm their names before I start the conversation.
Yeah, no, I definitely have those moments where I'm just like, where something cringeworthy happens around me, and I am like, oh, I'm gonna feel that in my chest for the next 3 hours. Thanks.
When we have house guests, we have professional name tags made up. It's an icebreaker. But it's not. It's for Siege.
I do make sure the family starts every day with an icebreaker game. Like,
my name is Siege.
Interesting fact.
And I like grapefruits. You can call me Grapefruit Siege.
It's a good interesting fact, right? Like pick a random food so that you're changing it every time, because you're gonna play more than one of these. If you ever end up in the corporate world, kids, just get ready for this shit. But a very easy one to go to is a food, because everybody then wants to comment when you say, like, hey, I like and I like avocados, and then somebody on the other side of the room is always just like, oh, I'm allergic to avocados, and so you got to remember that so that you don't kill this person with guac the next time that there's a big party.
And they're also super enthused to have a way to introduce their guac allergy.
Yeah.
Because that's not fun in an icebreaker. Hi, I'm Steven, and I'm allergic to avocados.
I don't know how often we do it sing-song. Do you often have to sing your icebreakers?
I've never had to do an icebreaker, thank Christ. This current depression about my job.
You've played plenty of those. So.
Was that?
They're basically theater games.
Yeah, exactly. They're all theater games, and in theater it's usually sing-song, or like on the cruise ship, because I was working in the entertainment office, like department. It's all dancers, and dancers want to sing everything.
That's the secret. They won't tell you that, but they go to school for dance because they couldn't make it on stage.
Yeah, man. It's all about fame. I can't think of the Fame song.
Somebody out there is pissed right now at me, and I love it.
Yeah, it's okay. Because what are they going to do? They're going to do an angry dance about it. They're going to go to the warehouse. They're going to angry dance out their feelings to Kenny Loggins, and then they're going to get past it.
Oh, man.
Footloose, Siege. They got to cut loose. Footloose. I'm not kicking off my Sunday shoes. They're the only things that keep my feet warm in the cellar. This has been a weird episode of the Say Report.
So, if you did go and see Oppenheimer and Barbie this week, what did you do?
I took a depression nap and I watched Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken.
Fair enough.
Oh, I caught up on iCarly too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a lot of just catching up on some streaming stuff, but also found myself weirdly diving into a replay. Not that weird. I love this game, but I'm 10 hours into a replay of Final Fantasy VII right now.
I noticed that. I wasn't gonna blow up your spot, but I was playing.
And-
I know what else I did, and this was a plan for Barbenheimer weekend. I got a mani-pedi. I got my fingers manicured and my toes did, and I'm very happy about it. And Claude, if you're listening, don't let your wife know. I want to see if she notices, because she has had snarky remarks about my toes every time we've met for breakfast. Oh my God, the reveal that it was Claude all along. And I want to see if she notices, or if she still has a snarky remark about my toes, because it was my first pedicure since the pandemic. So, like, they needed it.
I think we've talked about this before, but I can't do the pedicure. My feet are way too sensitive. It just would be too much. It'd be like whatever the opposite of ASMR is that gives you like the like pleasing, relaxing tingles. It would just be the opposite of that.
So, RMSA. Hey, but I did that. I got that stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah, why would it be blowing up my spot?
Well, no, because as the first thing that I wanted to do, I started getting manicures when I went to that speedrunning competition in 2019, because I realized that like having nice shaped nails and things like that really does affect, right? If you have a longer thumbnail and your button press might activate a second button, that you're gonna have a bad time.
Also, I mean, there is something to be said for at least a lot of the manicures I've ever gotten have involved hand massage, and with what you're doing, hands like clawed around a remote for hours at a time, or even over a keyboard and mouse, like working that shit out a little bit ain't a bad thing.
Oh yeah, and having another person do it. That's actually one of the complaints that I have about this, is that it has been 3 years since I've had a pedicure. It's been 4 years since I've had a manicure, and I didn't get that hand massage portion of the manicure, and I was a little disappointed, because I'm like, oh, my hands have been a little. I mean, gravity circuit and all the stuff I've been doing trying to get the trophy, the platinum trophy on that. Everything with Street Fighter 6, because I'm hoping to have that completed by the 27th, when the new Double Dragon game comes out.
And again, man, you work over a keyboard and mouse all day too. Like,
So it's one of those things I was looking forward to, and it didn't happen. But then the first thing I wanted to do with my like newly trimmed and shaped nails was see if I could beat the final boss of Ninja Gaiden. So I booted up the Switch, went into the special one that starts you right before the final boss of Ninja Gaiden, and I go in there and I'm doing it, and as I beat it, I saw you sign on playing Final Fantasy VII, and I'm like, who the fuck's playing Final Fantasy VII on the Switch? And I'm like, I'm going to blow up his spot in the episode. But then I'm like, no, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be mean to Siege.
No, I mean, like, so yeah, like the only thing I would say in that regard, just because you mentioned that I am on the Switch playing it, that's probably the worst part of the experience right now. The control transfers that they've gone through over the years, because this is technically a re-release of the PlayStation 4 re-release that they did a few years ago. There's some quality of life stuff in it that would not have been present in the original one. You can fast forward. You can get you can make yourself unkillable. There's or hit 3 times harder. There's all sorts of like I said, good quality of life kind of cheats and shortcuts that they put into this version for people out there to make it more accessible. Because when it came out in the late '90s, there's a lot of stuff we didn't quite know yet about how to do the JRPG like open world bottleneck, open world like rubber banding that game does, and all that sort of stuff. That we are now sitting here in the shadow of Final Fantasy 16, I believe, is what just came out a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, but it's thrown all that to the side. It is a full-on action game.
Yeah, like and so there's some stuff that has happened in it. A lot of the mini games are not near unplayable at this point. Like, and I mean, like, for anybody that's ever played Final Fantasy VII, you know what I'm talking about. But there's like the marching mini game, there's the squat mini game, there's there's all sorts of the dolphin jump mini game has just been was like a bitch. It took me 20 minutes to get that damn dolphin to jump me up where it needed to be. Like, there's all sorts of silly moments in that game that, I'll be honest, I think it's one of the most endearing parts of Final Fantasy VII. It's what makes it Final Fantasy VII is some of these sillier like mini game moments, right? Like getting all the right materials together. This is something that happens really early in the game, so I don't feel like this is a spoiler. But like getting all the right materials together to be the prettiest version of Cloud you can be when you go into the Don's mansion and he has to pick who he wants to take for the night, right? Like this is just like this goofy part where Cloud goes in dressed as a woman in order to be chosen so that he can interrogate interrogate the Don, right? But if you don't get the right materials, if you don't play the mini games leading up to it the right way and get all the right stuff, he won't pick you. He'll pick somebody else. So if you want him to pick you, you've got to do like this squat mini game that you do in the wrestling area really well. You've got to go and get the medicine to help the woman out of the bathroom so that she gives you like the right cologne or whatever it is. Like there's all sorts of like weird little things you have to do first to be the prettiest girl at the party. And all of that stuff was okay, but I was finding that like I just wasn't getting kind of the responses I thought too, right? Well, that stuff happens time and time and time again throughout this game, and it's just getting harder and harder and harder for me to like deal with the kind of squishier controls. But that being said, I love that game, and going back to it has been great. And like I've had a lot of stuff kind of I've lucked into some things that I don't normally look into as quickly. You know, usually I'm about 20 hours in before I'm like searching the woods for Yuffie, which is a character you don't necessarily have to get, depending on how you play that game. But you know, it's not hard once you run into her. It's just it's RNG that she even shows up, and then you have to pick the right responses to her to get her to actually be your friend. And like that happened like the instant that I got to the world map and I was running to the next place, I stepped into the woods and I was fighting her, and I was like, oh shit, like this is already happening, oh my god. And like I basically I threw everything to the side, was just like, forget what I was in the middle of doing. I gotta make sure I get this right because I don't know the next time I'm going to see her now. So like I've lucked into some stuff too, so it's been really fun. I don't know, like when I go into these like replays of these games, especially games I've played 100 times, like Final Fantasy VII, I'm not always convinced. I'm not always going in because I need to get to the end. I am going in with kind of the self permission that you know, I'll play this until I'm bored and then I'll move on to something else. And I kept kind of thinking what that might be for me is the fight where you meet Red 13, because then I thought, oh, well, what would be cool there is then I can go back to the remake, which I have not played Final Fantasy VII Remake since that first one was free on PS Plus like 6 months ago. And I played it for like 2 hours and was like, I'm into this, but I'm just not feeling it right now, especially because there was so much other stuff coming our way. So I was like, I'll come back to this at some point. And so I thought this would be my chance to go back to the remake. I'll play the original up until the point that I know the first episode of the remake ends, then I'll go back and play the remake. Well, I got to that point and I just haven't stopped. I just keep playing this version.
And I get that. I mean, I remember playing it for the very first time, start to finish, at the end of 2019, the year I was trying to beat 200 games. And I'm like, this will be my 200th game. And as much as it was because I wanted to finish it, that day where I played it for 20 hours was also because I'm kind of into this world and I'm into this story and I want to do it. Like Final Fantasy VII, I understand why people like care about it. I guess
I think the big thing for me is it's the very first that I ever played. It's the very first menu heavy game, right? You spend a lot of time in menus, organizing stuff, setting yourself up so that you can then go back into the world and succeed, right? And like a lot of the stuff just clicks for me because later Final Fantasies are also very menu heavy, but not all of them always work for me. There's stuff in Final Fantasy VIII, the very next game, that I just never quite understood, like the spirit stuff that goes on. You've got like a whole, I think Final Fantasy X gives you like a whole network of spirit stuff that you need to like organize and shit like that. And like I just never understood those systems. The materia system in Final Fantasy VII is definitely a system that you gotta kind of pay attention to and keep in mind, because you know you equip a materia and that's awesome, but at the same time you're also knocking like your HP and your MP down and stuff like that, or some are bringing that stuff up but then they're not as powerful, so you have to learn that shit, right? And I feel it feels very intuitive for me. Like the information is not always extremely clear, but once I know how to read it, it's then like that across the board for everything, right? Like when you go into shops to sell stuff, it wasn't clear to me at first that you're getting how much of the item you're selling, how much that thing costs, how much money you'll have after you sell it, and how much money you currently have, and then like stats on the item. And I was like having a hard time processing, like, wait, is this thing worth only one? No, I only have one. This thing is actually worth 50. But then why does it say that I'm going to lose money? Oh, that's because that's actually flipped. Like for some reason they show you your total before they show you how much you have currently, and like that doesn't make sense. But once you know how to read it, now I haven't had that problem again, right? So it's a game that you very much have to kind of learn how to play, but once you know how to play it, it is very open and very clear. unlike saying like a Dark Souls for me. Even though I felt like I was figuring out some shit in Dark Souls and Bloodborne, I never quite felt like I was learning it across the board. I was like, oh, I understand how this weapon works now, but that doesn't mean I understand how any of these other weapons I have work.
Well, that's the really cool thing about those games is that every weapon has its own like little niche.
Everything has its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, every armor piece, every weapon, every item, everything has kind of its own little thing that is interplaying with 1,000 other systems in those games. And I get that that's the appeal for some people, but for like me, like that's too much. That's you're getting into way too much for me. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. So I was like, oh, he's playing Final Fantasy VII. I'm gonna blow him up on that. But then like, no, I don't. I'm a little jealous that I'm not playing Final Fantasy VII. If I'll be honest with the court. But I mean, I did that thing that makes God laugh. I made a plan, and that plan has gone exactly terribly. For me. My whole plan was to be finished with Street Fighter 6 by Thursday, this past Thursday, then wrap up everything on the Platinum Trophies for Gravity Circuit so that this weekend I could do at least Doom, if not Doom and Doom Eternal, and then turn to, on Monday, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. And the whole thing about that is that they released another Fire Emblem Warriors game that I just found out about on Wednesday. It has been out for a year, but there was a Woot deal. Remember Woot? Remember Woot.com?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Fire Emblem...
Like this weekend?
What?
Like just the past week there was a Woot deal, or are you talking about a year ago?
The game came out a year ago, and then this past week there was a Woot deal to buy it for $20. So it's a Switch game. It's a first-party Switch game, technically. First-party property, Koei Tecmo is the one who puts it together, right?
Right. Well, it's like Game Freak and being technically the ones that are first-party on Pokemon, but everybody still calls them Nintendo games.
Yeah, exactly. And it's $20. So I'm like, and I love Fire Emblem Warriors. As much as I love Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors really worked for me. And I have been holding off playing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, mostly because I got it as a gift and then they announced Tears of the Kingdom. So I was like, well, I don't want to play a game that's not in that style beforehand. But then finding out there was another Fire Emblem, I'm like, well, I got to play the Hyrule Warriors version before I go into this, right? I played them all in release order, so I have to do that again. But I still have not finished Street Fighter 6. My hope is to finish it today because I do need to return it. Mark wants it back on Thursday because right now, fingers crossed, we are going to be able to get together to play the new Double Dragon game, which, like, I have games with people. I have certain games that when new games come out, I try to make sure I play them for the first time with these individuals. And Mark has been my Double Dragon buddy since Double Dragon Neon. God, remember Double Dragon Neon? That's a great game. I love that game. That game, fantastic. And then Double Dragon 4 came out, and we sat and we played through that game, and all the time we put into that game. So this new Double Dragon game, which is being called a roguelike arcade style beat 'em up. I don't know how you make it roguelike at all, other than
I mean, you're gonna basically probably be unlocking stuff as you go, and I'm betting that there's probably going to be not death mechanics, but probably game ending mechanics. Like,
yeah. Well, I'm guessing that
replayability with new power ups is the baseline for people to say roguelike nowadays, and I can totally see that in a Double Dragon game.
Well, my hope for it is the fact that you're going to be going through, like, Big Apple 3 a.m. to use Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, but it's not going to be the same foot soldiers you fight every time.
Yeah,
like, you're going to see different mooks every time you go through each stage, which I think that's cool because then it feels like the world is alive.
Yeah, no, a little bit of randomization is also another thing that really evokes the roguelite aspect for a lot of people as well. It's hard. We've talked about this term before. The idea that roguelite really is such a vague term nowadays, and so many people bring those elements into their games that it's hard to judge what is going to, press your buttons in that regard or not, because that term is almost meaningless nowadays.
Yeah, but it is something that I'm very excited to play, especially because of the two Marions. The Marion that's going to be in this game and the Marion that was presented in River City Girls 2. So, like, people are like, that's really interesting. So I'm interested on that level, too. Which brings me to, and I know that I always say I'm never going to talk about River City Girls 2, but there's something that's grinding my gears right now, and I'd really like to get it off my chest briefly. If with your permission, Sejan.
Yeah, you have the floor. I don't. Yeah, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So finally, they have done a patch that supposedly fixes everything. They had done the patch to get it up to 60 FPS, but then that broke a bunch of timing on moves, and now they've finally done that. And now on Twitter and other places, it is River City Girls 2 is now the best version of itself. If you've been waiting, now's the time to check it out. And I'm just like, so it's the complete version of itself. It's not like you added anything that was not in the base game. The game just plays like it was supposed to. It just really feels to me like deceptive marketing that it's now the best version of itself.
I mean, here's the thing, is if you're still paying attention to River City Girls 2, you're probably in that community, right? Like, I don't know if there's anybody out there that doesn't know anything about that game, that sees those words and thinks, oh, I don't know this game, but if the complete version's out, I'm going to get it. Like, I don't know if that person exists. As much as what you're talking about is, like, it is. Like, it's really gross, but, I mean, like, this is what they're going to do, is they're going to spin it as the finished version, because they're not going to talk about it being the fixed version. That's just not how they're going to talk about it.
Here it is. I found the tweet. River City Girls 2 is now better than ever, is the official wording.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a beta anymore.
No, it is definitely a gross way to sell, hey, finishing your thing. It's not like, say, like Mario Kart, you know, which I think I'm still banking on seeing a Mario Kart complete version this Christmas with all of the DLC like pack in, right? Like you don't have to, you basically will pay one price for it all. And
I hope it's all on cart too. That would really be a game changer for me. If they release a version of it that is all of the courses on the cart, sign me up.
And driver, yeah.
All courses.
I don't know. I don't know how they'll approach it, because the other thing is that Switch has been very happy. Nintendo has been very happy to do online versions that what you're getting on the cart is not the game. You know, for a lot of these third-party releases that are quote unquote too big for the carts, they've been doing that whole you're actually streaming the game stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they'll go so far as to put, maybe because it is one of their precious babies, you know, the fact that it is their Mario Kart might mean that they actually do treat it with a little bit more dignity. But we'll find out. I don't know. But I do think though that I mean, it'd be weird for them not to sell a complete package Mario Kart after all the work they've done for 2 years, right?
Right.
Like that, and pitch that as like the definitive version, however that looks for them. So with that, like, kind of out in the water, with that possibility out in the water, like, I'm okay with that because of all of the work that they've done over 2 years and the idea that it is updated from before. Maybe they do something to it graphically. That would be cool. Or maybe this is the thing that they hold on to for the announcement of the new Switch, right? Whatever that is, new system, say. And one of the first games you can get is a complete version of Mario Kart would be kind of, I could see them doing that. But all of that makes sense to me, right? Like, it does not offend me in any way because of what they've done over the years with that game. You're right, though. What they've done with this game is finally get the product out that you were promised the first time. And we live in a culture where that is something that does kind of catch a lot of praise right now. I mean, like, look at the ways that people talk about No Man's Sky.
I know, yeah.
I still can't believe how much people love that game. Not because of what it is. I'm sure that now that everything that's in there, it's amazing. It's just like, what the hell, though? We were told this was the game we were supposed to get 5 years ago. What, like, and we're suddenly like, we're gonna sit here and put this game up on a pedestal? Like, they shouldn't. They, like, I don't know. They have done. Who's the company behind No Man's Sky?
I have no idea. When No Man's Sky came out and was the
creators
turkey,
of No Man's,
like, I was just like, I'm done.
Man's Sky. Yeah, the creators of No Man's Sky have done a really good job in, you know, interfacing with the community in order to correct things and be very open and transparent about stuff and, like, all of that. So, like, in that regard, I definitely think that we should look at them as a model when this kind of shit goes sideways. But we cannot be okay with the fact that the game is finally what it is years after we people spent money on it, right? Like that cannot be part of the system.
I mean, look at what Cyberpunk 2077 too,
Yep.
and the new DLC there. It's one of those situations where it just feels so kind of gross to me. Like it's now better than ever. Mario Kart 8 is a great example of a game that is better than ever. The fact that like the HD has been like kind of fine-tuned from its Wii U. The fact that there are now 24 cups to run. And 22 of them are available now, but still, once everything has been put into that game, them calling it better than ever does not offend me, because they have listened to criticisms and taken them under advisement. And I'm talking small criticisms too, like Coconut Mall getting the secret update with the next wave after Coconut Mall to have the cars actually moving instead of just sitting still. Mm-hmm. Like that stuff is things that like game was completely playable. This is just bonus. Like I
don't like. I don't envy anybody out there that is like on the periphery of this kind of shit and just casually playing games like River City Girls 2, because like you're gonna get a hold of a product at some point. You're going to have some feelings about that product, and you're never going to be able to truly commiserate with anybody about this shit, because you're not going to know what version they played. You're not going to know where they came to this, how they came to this. There's just, it's really like, it's damaging to the industry as a whole and to their specific community to behave in this way. But also, what else are they going to say? Like they're just, you know, you want them to be better. And you would hope that they would be able to figure this shit out. But I'm also in no way surprised that this is the way that they've decided to spin this, because like that's just going to be the way they do it.
That's how marketing works.
I think a lot of what we're talking about is part of this whole industry change right now, and the ways that the industry has looked at itself in terms of things like crunch and stuff, right? Well, we don't want to be forcing our people to be working in these conditions, because A, we're getting in trouble for it, and B, we shouldn't be behaving this way. So that's good. But the solution is not to just then put out half-finished games and just keep working on them. Like, we've learned time and time again that people are okay waiting for a game, especially if you're being upfront and transparent about the fact that the reason you're taking your time is you don't want to be driving your devs into the ground. So like that's okay. Like the Cyberpunk conversation, I think, is just one of, they kept taking their time with that game, and people just kept kind of pushing them, saying, hey, where's this game? Where's this game? Where's this game you promised? And lo and behold, it came out, and even they admitted at the time that it was not the game they wanted out. So then don't put it out. Like, I know people out there were pressuring them, and they were getting it from audiences as well as business partners and boards and all that shit. But like, that pressure for them to put that game out is the reason that game came out as unfinished as it was. And this new DLC stuff that has quote unquote corrected a bunch of stuff is just more proof of that. Right? Is just evidence that they had it in them to make the game they wanted to make. They just needed the time to do it, and they just weren't given it, you know?
I mean, the saddest thing about that for me is the fact that I will never play it. And the only reason I will never play it is because I bought it on Stadia. And the fact that my Stadia copy, I was given a full refund for it, so I'm not upset about that. But that was where I bought that game, and that was where I played that game. I'm not interested in playing it on any other console or even PC.
Yeah.
I
will definitely, eventually at some point this version of it will go on sale with all of this DLC and all that sort of stuff. I mean, especially because this DLC, from what I understand, there's just a straight up update to the main game with it, right? Like, it's not like you have to pay for the DLC for some of that quality of life stuff that they updated, because it was just such a big fix. But essentially, like, I will play that game eventually when it becomes a price point that I deem ready to pay. I'm not going to pay full price for it, at least not right now. With everything that's gone on with that game over the last few years, I just don't care to. Maybe that'll change. Maybe at some point in the future I'll just get a wild hair and won't mind spending $70 on whatever. But like right now, no. It comes down to 20, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, it will probably come down to 20. Tiny Tina's 20 this weekend. Mm-hmm. And I was like seriously considering it before. I'm like, no, I have I have games that I need to beat. I need to finish Street Fighter 6. I need to play Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity.
You just let me know whenever you play Tiny Tina, man, because I will jump in on that.
Oh yeah, I will definitely give you the heads up. Do not worry.
That was one of my. I had so much fun with that game last year, and like I have not gone back to it. I am definitely in that boat of people that like played the DLC as much as I wanted to, but have not touched it in months. Which says something compared to the ways that I approached all the other Borderlands games. But that does not change the fact that I enjoyed the hell out of the time that I had with that game.
Very cool, very cool. I mean, I don't know. I have one other thing that I want to address. Is there anything else that you want to add, or?
No, nothing too huge this week. Yeah, no, nothing big.
All right, cool. So I have a couple of corrections, apologies. I said in errors from last week. The first one was Gravity Circuit shipped complete. It's not like they were missing a cutscene. They were missing a cutscene. I just thought that it was a narrative choice to be a black screen in that moment because it was a moment of confusion where a member of the team betrayed everybody. But no, it turns out that there was a cutscene that was not there. That has since been restored on the Steam version. I don't know when it's going to be restored on the console version.
But is it a like story changing cutscene? Because you were saying that in relation to River City Girls 2, I believe, or at least River City Girls, where there's an entire scene that basically changes your perception of the entire game that was just added.
So that's River City.
There was missing.
Yeah. So for River City Girls, they added a second ending that was in line with what happened if you got the secret ending, the secret final boss fight. That was added well after the fact when people were upset that like, oh, we changed things, but it's the same ending. And now that's even weirder because that ending is the canonical ending going into River City Girls 2. So, like, whole different thing to discuss there. In River City Girls 2, the fight after Uptown, where you fight Provy, the character from River City Ransom Underground, there was no cutscene there, but that was just because they hadn't finished the animation on it. Like, because they had shown stills from it, but it just never played after the fight. And then they're like, we've restored this cutscene. But then on Transparency, they're like, yeah, we had problems finishing the animation in time for the release date.
And then, so Gravity Circuit.
So Gravity Circuit, spoilers for Gravity Circuit, it's a Mega Man, like, heavily inspired game. So I don't know how big a reveal this is. After you fight the initial 8 robot masters, it is revealed that you have to go to what would be the Dr. Wily stages. And so you return back to base, and one of the guys starts like glowing and smoking. And then it went to a black screen, and it sounded like there was a bunch of fighting going on in the darkness. And then you come back and like people are damaged and there's a hole because that guy like leapt out of your base and everything. And it's been revealed that he was a traitor and now you have to go after him.
Okay.
And
I mean, that works, right?
That totally works. Like for me, I'm like, narratively, that's really cool that it looks like, you know, his overload kind of shut down the base. So it's in darkness and it's one of those, it's not as good as Planet Terror, where the missing reel and the world has gone to shit. But it was very reminiscent of that for me, right? It's like, it's so confusing. You can't make any sense of it. You don't see it. But then when they released their update to the Steam version 1.0.5, they said, we've restored the cutscene that wasn't playing after you defeat the 8 robots. We can't believe that we shipped this to retail with that error in there. So like it was just an issue where like the game wasn't accessing the video file that was supposed to play. I mean,
honestly, it's probably because whatever quality testing they did, if somebody's not like, I don't know what their testers are looking for, what they're given for information in advance and all that, right? But considering your reaction to that moment, I could easily see a bunch of testers that aren't aware that there's supposed to be more on screen, just assuming that that's what's supposed to be there, right? It's not like a glaring error that makes you go, oh, I need to tell somebody there's something missing here.
Yeah, it's not as if there was a fully voiced scene there. Right. Like, the sound still played, just the images weren't accessed. So then even again, if you're, like, scrubbing through the game, you see, oh, like, it's properly linked to what's supposed to be happening there. Yeah, and we're getting reaction. It's one of those things where it's not as offensive to me as River City Girls 2, them being like, yeah, we just didn't have this cutscene finished, but we had a date, we had a release date. So we released it without that cutscene there. Oh, okay. I guess fuck me then, right? As the consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where like, and then like, and the transparency of just like, we missed the coding there. We're very sorry about it. And also the fact that through Steam, it's already fixed. And then the discussion is, when's it going to come to console? You know what? When it comes to console. The other weird thing about River City Girls 2, just because it weirdly relates to Gravity Circuit in this one moment, is that they're like, we're not going to fix it until we can universally fix it across the board. And on one level, that's kind of cool. But on another level, by the time they fixed it, everything was ready but Switch. So Switch didn't get the fix until later. So like,
also it makes you really kind of scratch your head and go, how do we know you actually have a fix for this then, right? Because at least what Gravity Circuit has done, you can see, okay, they've identified the problem, they have a fix for the problem, they just need to now figure out how to get it through all the red tape of getting it onto consoles, which we all know is a whole fucking kettle of fish, right? For anybody working on River City Girls outwardly saying, we're going to hold off on this fix, even though, basically they're saying, even though we could fix this here on PC today, we're not going to do it until we can fix it everywhere, is like, what? Do you have a fix for it? Like, it almost sounds like maybe you don't have a fix for it.
Well, so I will say this. The fix for PC was released in beta. So if you went into your Steam and downloaded the beta of it,
what's
like,
the point of that then?
I don't understand. I don't know, because it's available.
If you're already going to give it out to people in beta, why not?
Then why wouldn't you just make it the thing? I don't know. But then, like, that was because people had been able to play it in beta. Once they released the actual fix to everybody, that's why people were able to say, a lot of these moves aren't working now in 60 FPS. Like, they had worked in the beta version of it, but however you guys fixed it, it did not transfer over properly.
So that does mean that they did have to build a different type of fix of some kind. So it just has this stink on it of we're not quite sure what to do with it.
We're not quite sure how to fix it, right? It's like, it's not great. It's not a great look for it. And I will probably be holding off if there ever is an Oracle Day when a River City Girls 3 happens. I'm not as enthused about the game as I once was. And I think the worst part about it is that has trickled back to the first game. And I loved that first game, even with that, like, betrayal ending that they eventually added to, like, not make me feel betrayed by putting in the extra time to get the secret boss fight, and then that not having an effect on the end of the game. It's just like this game, when it was released, 60 FPS. Every character felt written uniquely. Like, this is a good experience. But then for the sequel, it's like they cut a bunch of corners in order to get the sequel out. And, you know, like, I've been struggling not to quote Miyamoto, but, like, a bad game is bad forever.
Yeah.
Like it's... Your first experience with a game is very hard to change that.
Yeah. No, completely.
All right.
Was your other...
The other thing is... I very publicly said on the show last week that I would never eat another meatball sub. And then here comes Firehouse Subs with their pepperoni pizza meatball sub, full of full-size meatballs covered in double Parmesan cheese, then covered in large slices of pepperoni, all in a double garlic bread roll. And I ate it the next day. I said on the show I will never eat another meatball sub from like a restaurant, and then the next day I got a large pepperoni pizza meatball sub.
Not to put too much of a bookend on this episode, but it's because I Nolan style incepted you. I put it out there that about the meatball sub, and then you couldn't stop thinking about it.
Dude,
lo and behold.
I mean, we were watching, I don't remember, I think it was a baseball game that we were watching later, and that was the commercial, and I'm like, son of a bitch, that's a meatball sub I want to have. You inceptioning me, son of a bitch. Let me spin my totem, make sure that I'm awake right now.
Oh no, the top won't fall.
It's that he doesn't care if it does. Oh, okay. Thank you, Christopher Nolan. But I think that's good for me.
Christopher Nolan. I really like your Christopher Nolan impression, and you're gonna have to bring that out more often.
Oh, I'm gonna have to listen to it again because that just came from me. I don't freaking know anymore. All right, I think that's good for this week. Other than the last thing, you're gonna get a bonus Say Report this Thursday. It's a very special episode. And do you want to inform the people on what we're watching, Sejin?
Yeah, Devon has asked that we watch some pornographic film of his called Jiggly.
It's Gigli. Gigli. I don't know. It feels semi-appropriate with all of these films that were like huge box office failures that happened in the last month and a half or so.
Tangentially related to Ben Affleck. No, I mean, it's also, we'd be remiss to not point out that it's also been very much in the zeitgeist over the last year or so as the power couple relationship of J-Lo and Ben has come back to the forefront, right?
Yeah.
So it has also been something that has been brought up because there's also this idea that this is the movie that maybe led to a lot of decisions back then between the two of them in their personal lives and to go their separate ways. And the fact that they are at very different points in their careers now, and they've realized that this is maybe a time for them to come back together. People have talked about Gigli a bit over the last year. And, you know, we're not that kind of podcast, which is why we've probably not really brought it up. But this is an opportunity for us to maybe dip our toe also into just kind of the celebrity mix-em-ups of them all. You know, the ways that shit seems to have really changed over the last 20 years. And we'll talk about that.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of interesting. But for me, it's also the fact, if we're eventually going to do a very special episode on Daredevil, which Sejin will have to, like, literally stitch my mouth shut via the zombie in Hocus Pocus to not have that happen, and probably a Jersey Girl episode, you have to lay the Gigli foundation. The double garlic bread roll of the pepperoni pizza meatball sub that is Ben Affleck from 2003 to 2005 is Gigli.
Continuously finding himself working with his partners in films. It's like the other big theme there. Again, we'll talk a little bit about, because Ben Affleck, I think, is one of those rare like guys that we get to talk about both in the nerd realm because of all of the Batman stuff and the WB stuff, but also like he is a celeb, like he is a true celeb, and we run into this a lot, especially when we do our when we do like Brendan Fraser History Month and stuff, is we find ourselves talking about like kind of one of the last true celebrity people out there, right? Like, you got Clooney, you have Pitt, you have Affleck, but like beyond that, like there's not a lot of people that like really fit into that mold anymore, and I think that's a good thing, to be clear. But we'll talk more and more about this when we talk about Affleck.
Yeah, it's gonna be an adventure. So we hope that you're there. Remember, for very special episodes, those are only released to the podcast aggregates. So if you're one of our people who only listens on YouTube, now's the perfect time to go subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, or Stitcher went away, but like Amazon Podcasts. Really, anywhere that podcast can be found, now's the time to subscribe so you don't miss us watching Gigli. There you go.
Words never said before.
And probably never said again. With that in mind, if you have any comments about anything that happened this week, or you specifically want to get in touch with Sejin about anything that was said this week, the best place to do that is still on Twitter, at the Say Report. One day that's not going to be true anymore. So just like keep that in mind. But right now, at the Say Report on Twitter, best way to get in touch with us with any of your comments. And specifically, if you want to talk to Sejin about playing Final Fantasy VII on the Switch, right there, we'll make sure it gets to him.
Yeah, and if you too are going to snub the whole Barbenheimer of it all and go and see Indiana Jones, Devon is still looking for other people to talk to. Just because he found one person doesn't mean that he's done looking. He's a true archaeologist.
If anything, it made me want to talk about my thoughts more, hoping to find somebody who can be my Belloc Black about it.
So you can find him at Devon D. Decker.
And I look forward to it. But until that time, please bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejin Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother. We'll see you next time.